There is an old truth often attributed to thinkers like Marcus Aurelius. You have power over your mind, not outside events. But what happens when the mind itself becomes overcrowded? When it is no longer events that disturb you, but accumulation, not tragedy, not catastrophe, just excess. Excess information, excess opinions, excess self-improvement, excess possibility. You wake not with fear, but with friction, a subtle mental heaviness, the quiet strain of too many open loops, too many ambitions competing for the same finite attention, too many micro-decisions draining cognitive energy before the day has even begun. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Most people attempt to solve mental overcrowding with addition. More productivity systems, more mindfulness techniques, more stress relief routines, more strategies for mental health. But the mind does not clear through accumulation. It clears through subtraction. Today, we are not discussing discipline of action. We are discussing discipline of subtraction, not as aesthetic minimalism, not as aesthetic decluttering, but as extreme minimalism applied to the interior world. Because when the mind feels overcrowded, it is rarely asking for motivation. It is asking for removal, and that is a very different skill. We return to this territory often, not because we have run out of ideas, but because the modern mind keeps manufacturing new forms of overcrowding. Every season, the noise mutates. Yesterday, it was productivity pressure. Today, it is identity pressure. Tomorrow, it will be something even more subtle, a new expectation disguised as personal growth. And so we revisit extreme minimalism not as repetition, but refinement. The surface conversation about minimalism has already been exhausted online. Empty rooms, capsule wardrobes, 10-item challenges, clean with me aesthetics. But the deeper conversation, the one about cognitive bandwidth, anxiety relief, and invisible stress, that remains largely untouched. When your mind feels overcrowded, it is not because you own too many objects. It is because you are carrying too many internal obligations, unfinished thoughts, unresolved comparisons, unquestioned ambitions, inherited definitions of success. This is where extreme minimalism separates itself from ordinary minimalism and from mainstream self-improvement. Self-improvement says, upgrade yourself. Extreme minimalism asks, which parts of this self were never necessary? Minimalist living, in its deeper form, is not about organizing shelves. It is about organizing commitments. It is not about decluttering drawers. It is about decluttering identities. And that is why this topic deserves revisiting. Because each time we return, we strip away another invisible layer. Simplicity is not achieved once. It is recalibrated. The mind becomes overcrowded not in one dramatic collapse, but in small accumulations of yes. Yes to one more responsibility. Yes to one more opinion. Yes to one more digital input. Yes to one more version of who you should be. And slowly, the minimalist lifestyle becomes an internal necessity, not an external preference. So the real question today is not how to declutter your house. It is this: what is occupying mental real estate that no longer earns its stay? Because when we speak of stress relief, of mindfulness, of mental health, we often forget the most direct method. Remove what does not deserve your attention. And that requires a courage far greater than organizing. It requires editing. Here is where the misunderstanding begins. Many assume that if you practice minimalism, especially extreme minimalism, your mind must automatically be calm. Fewer possessions, cleaner spaces, organized routines, therefore, organized thoughts. But mental overcrowding does not always come from what you own. It often comes from what owns you invisibly. There is a quieter burden that even seasoned minimalists carry. The burden of optimization. The pressure to maintain the right habits. The subtle anxiety of staying intentional. The internal monitoring system that whispers, "Are you doing simple living correctly?" And suddenly, minimalism, which was meant to offer stress relief, becomes another performance. Another identity to uphold. Another invisible standard. This is rarely discussed because it sounds contradictory. Yet many who pursue personal growth discover something unsettling. You can declutter your home and still feel crowded inside. You can organize your schedule and still feel mentally scattered. You can reduce consumption and still feel internally excessive. Why? Because the modern world has shifted the battlefield. Overcrowding is no longer just physical. It is informational, psychological, aspirational. You are not only consuming objects, you are consuming perspectives, advice, frameworks, morning routines, self-improvement philosophies. Even conversations about mindfulness can become mental clutter when they are added rather than integrated. The minimalist lifestyle can unintentionally turn into a checklist. Meditate, journal, declutter, optimize, improve. And in trying to simplify life, one quietly multiplies obligations. This is the paradox. The mind becomes overcrowded not from chaos, but from too many structured intentions, too many systems competing for the same attention span, too many good habits fighting for priority. Extreme minimalism, when misunderstood, can become another layer of effort. But when understood correctly, it becomes something far more radical. It questions the necessity of the effort itself, and that is uncomfortable, because it forces us to confront something deeper than clutter. It forces us to confront attachment to identity, not attachment to things, attachment to being a certain kind of person, the productive one, the mindful one, the highly aware one, the always growing one. Mental overcrowding is often identity overcrowding, and until that is addressed, no amount of decluttering, physical or digital, will deliver true anxiety relief. The problem, then, is not excess belongings. It is excess self-definition. Let us move away from objects entirely, because the most transformative form of extreme minimalism does not begin in your wardrobe. It begins in your decision-making. Observe closely. The average mind today processes thousands of micro-decisions before noon. What to respond to, what to ignore, what to improve, what to post, what to research, what to become next. Each decision seems small, harmless, but cognition is not infinite. Attention is a biological resource, and when too many possibilities remain open, the brain never fully rests. It hovers, scanning, evaluating, comparing. This is why many people who pursue simple living still feel restless. They have decluttered possessions, but they have not decluttered options. Extreme minimalism, applied internally, does something most people are afraid to attempt. It closes doors deliberately, not because they are bad doors, but because they are unnecessary doors. For example, an extreme minimalist does not merely reduce wardrobe choices. They reduce identity experimentation. They stop asking every year, should I reinvent myself again? They reduce informational intake, not as avoidance, but as filtration. They practice what could be called cognitive frugality. Not every opinion deserves entry. Not every opportunity deserves evaluation. Not every ambition deserves oxygen. This is not laziness. It is strategic subtraction. Consider how anxiety often forms. It is not always fear of disaster. It is prolonged exposure to unresolved options. The mind does not like open loops. When too many remain active, the nervous system stays subtly alert. Extreme minimalism closes loops. It simplifies commitments, limits inputs, narrows focus, not to shrink life, but to intensify it. A minimalist lifestyle, at its most disciplined level, is not about having less to look at. It is about having fewer mental tabs open. Imagine a browser with 50 active windows. Now imagine 5. The content may be similar, but the cognitive load is radically different. Mental health improves not only through mindfulness, but through structural reduction. Extreme minimalism asks, what recurring thought, obligation, or pursuit could be removed entirely? Not optimized, removed. Because sometimes stress relief is not found in managing chaos. It is found in refusing complexity at its root. And that is where most people hesitate. Because subtraction feels irreversible. Yet clarity often requires a firm boundary. Extreme minimalism is not extreme because of how little you own. It is extreme because of how decisively you eliminate what fragments your attention. There comes a quiet turning point. It does not look dramatic. No sudden life overhaul. No announcement. No visible transformation. It is a decision made internally and then guarded. The moment an individual practicing extreme minimalism realizes something profound. Clarity is not created by adding better systems. It is created by removing competing priorities. Up until this point, most people attempt to manage mental overcrowding. They reorganize it, schedule it, label it, color-code it. But management is not liberation. Management still assumes everything deserves to stay. The clarity shift happens when you stop asking, "How do I handle all of this?" and begin asking, "Why am I carrying all of this?" This is where less is more stops being decorative language and becomes neurological reality. When inputs decrease, cognitive friction decreases. When commitments decrease, emotional leakage decreases. When ambitions are narrowed, energy consolidates. And something remarkable occurs. Silence stops feeling empty. It begins to feel powerful. An extreme minimalist does not experience freedom because life is easy. They experience freedom because life is defined, bounded, deliberate. There are fewer internal negotiations, fewer background arguments, fewer mental simulations of alternative futures. Instead of 10 parallel identities, there is one chosen direction. Instead of 20 possible improvements, there is one meaningful pursuit. This is why true simplicity produces strength. Because strength is concentrated energy. When your mind feels overcrowded, it is not asking for inspiration. It is asking for compression. Compression of focus. Compression of values. Compression of identity. And here is the undeniable realization. You do not need to be everything you are capable of being. You only need to be aligned with what matters most. That single insight changes everything. Because once you accept that not every potential must be pursued, mental space reappears, anxiety softens, breathing deepens, decisions become faster, not because you are more efficient, but because fewer things qualify for consideration. This is the internal revolution of extreme minimalism. It replaces scattered ambition with concentrated intention. And in that concentration, the overcrowded mind finds its first clear horizon. So we return to where we began. Power over the mind. Not by controlling every thought. Not by mastering every technique of mindfulness. Not by endlessly refining the machinery of self-improvement. But by reducing what demands control in the first place. When the mind feels overcrowded, it is rarely broken. It is overcommit, overexposed, over-identified. Extreme minimalism offers something quietly radical in a culture of accumulation. Permission to be narrower. Permission to want less. Permission to close doors permanently. Permission to stop rehearsing alternative versions of yourself. This is not withdrawal from life. It is precision within life. And precision creates calm. The minimalist lifestyle, at its highest form, is not aesthetic. It is structural. It decides in advance what will not be allowed to occupy mental space. That is where lasting stress relief lives. Not in managing everything better, but in needing to manage less. So if your mind has felt crowded lately, consider this. What could be removed, not optimized this week? Not cleaned, not reorganized, removed. If this exploration added a new layer to how you see extreme minimalism, share your reflections below. And if you are serious about cultivating clarity, simplicity, and deliberate living in a world that constantly multiplies demands, subscribe and continue this discipline with us. Because the real work is not adding more knowledge. It is subtracting with courage.